Now that's what I call dinner. Stir fry delight. Yeah. Hey folks, the chat's on. Watch out. Everybody's gonna get crazy on me now. The governor of Georgia has declared a state of emergency effective Saturday. That's not encouraging. And I don't know how big of an area this is going to cover. He's saying it's for the whole state or affected counties. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. See what happens. It's going to be a crazy few days here. Well, look at that. We got fajanda, we got chickens and a pug, and we got the other side has now become, can you remember? Hello, everybody. I'm going to be eating my dinner, and I have to clarify because a couple of people are fussing about me eating. To the complainers about my clothing and my eating, if you're not donating to my channel, which you're not, then don't fuss. This is free. It's like a TV channel. Click to the next one. Hit the red X, scroll up, whatever you do. You know what I mean? You know, chicken, you got all kinds. You got all kinds. So I wanted to talk about tithing because I do believe in giving to my church. When I attend a church, I give. And I don't do that to grandstand. That's not something that we're here to brag about. But I remember years ago, and you got some pastors and people that they will split hairs over that issue. And you like my eating for some reason. You know, now that's funny because a lot of people, I'm being honest, a lot of people I cannot watch them eat. There's something about that that's like, no, it's off-putting. There's just some people, the way they eat, it's like, ooh, yeah, I'm just going to focus on my thing over here. I don't want to watch that. And I was talking to somebody else. He can't stand, a friend of mine said he cannot stand it when people are chewing with their mouth wide open. And yeah, that can get irritating. But I've had people tell me, and I mean, it is ridiculous. They'll say things like, so you tithe on the net or the gross? And they will make a big proud statement that you need to tithe on the gross. And, I'm going to be talking about it. Georgia Governor Kemp declared a state of emergency. I saw it issued today when I was on my lunch hour, and I thought, ruh-roh, supposed to take place Saturday. Temperature is going to be an issue. If it's just a couple inches of snow, no big deal, but we're talking ice. And with all these trees, that's not good. And this, stir-fried some food line veggies, threw some northern beans, rice, put a little garlic powder in there, voila. So, people would tell me that, well, Mike, you got to tithe on the gross. Whatever your gross pay is. I said, no. When the federal government takes all their stuff out of my check, why am I supposed to tithe on something I'm not getting? Well, thank you. Wow, you got 16 inches, so it's already hit Kentucky. Well, my friend and ex-roommate, we text each other daily. She gets out of work before I do because she's a school teacher, and she said it was raining when she headed out to, she lives 45 minutes away, so the storm is slowly making its way here. So weird. I'm looking north and west. All day that sky was light clouds over us, but you could see that dark edge, and I'm like, that just does not look good. Hey, Cody, how are you? 16 inches of snow. And thank you, Can You, the other side. So, you guys can say what you want. This is open discussion. The New Testament says, let each man in keeping with his income set aside a portion. The New Testament doesn't say 10%, 20%. The Old Testament did, but if you add up all the different things, it could exceed that. Grain offerings and all the other offerings. And an offering is not the same as a tithe. And I've heard churches get on this and go over and over. I think if you go to a local church, you should support your pastor and that. But you shouldn't be guilted. The Bible says God loves a cheerful giver. And like my channel, I do not consider that a tithe. If people want to donate, they can. If they don't. What bothers me about the donation issue is if people want to criticize my dressing, my eating. If this bothers you that bad, and you feel that you need this channel, then send some donation. I mean, that's crazy. If you expect me to be some polished broadcaster that wears a suit and tie, then pay me the money. This is just me being me. Cody, it went all right. Oh, Cody, I know that ice sucks. And you're right below Kentucky. Kentucky. I stop talking, my mouth full. You would think you'd be getting the snow like chicken would. Chicken, that ain't right. I've been all right, Samuel. How are you? I heard stories way back in the day. There was a charismatic church started by a woman. I don't remember where in the country it was, but it was a long time ago. She had clotheslines hanging above the pews with clothespins, and you were to put your where everybody could see it. Wow. The Bible says, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. But this woman wanted everybody to see who gave what. Those kind of churches you need to run from. I've been all right, Samuel. Just plugging along. How are you? I don't like churches that harp on giving. I don't like it when I've gone to churches where this is a new thing. I mean, this started late 90s, where they have a worship pastor with pretty exorbitant salaries. Like a worship pastor? I went to Riverside Baptist Church in Denver, Colorado. They had a paid orchestra that came. They were not church people. They were a paid orchestra. Why are we doing this? That's good. I've seen a lot of churches like that, Joel. I've seen a lot of churches do that. My pastor believes it's a tenth, a tithe. But I've never asked them, so do you think people ought to tithe off the gross? You know, the government takes out a pretty healthy portion of your check. Got you, Fahanda. Hey, Coyote, how are you? Coyote, you getting weather where you at? We got some nasty stuff headed our way, starting tomorrow. Hey, Arwoo. I hate the snow. I hate it. How much snow you got right now? Well, I know Evander does not like winter. Arwoo, where are you at again? F my eyes. I hope you loaded up on Baby Bell cheese, Coyote. North Carolina. Well, Georgia, same thing. All across this area, gentlemen, start your bucket trucks. Get ready for the power outages. Some smart aleck left a comment on the YouTube video about Governor Kemp's speech about this. And he says, wow, the majority of the country faces this all the time, and you guys make a big deal. I said, excuse me, I lived in northern Minnesota. They're used to it. This is a subtropical climate. We don't have salt trucks. We got trees growing over power lines. We got more trees than you do growing on power lines up north because they don't let the trees grow by the power lines. I hate that attitude. And I used to live up north. I was guilty of it. Oh, these Southerners complain about the cold. Oh my gosh. God has allowed me to live everywhere to have understanding. The South is hot. Them Northerners up there could not handle our summers. And we couldn't handle their winters, but I lived in their winters, so I can say, excuse me, I lived down here, but I lived in Duluth. Don't brag. I'd like to see these northern polar bears come down here and live for summer. All I would hear is whining and fussing. I do not have a generator. Coyote, you be careful out there, man. Fonda, we got snow in February last year. Gina built the cutest little snowman on top of the burn barrel. It was so cute. She put little sticks in the arms. I said, look at you. She was acting like a schoolgirl. I take it for granted. I grew up in such heavy snowfall. Wish you had what? Oh, a generator? Hi, Nikki. Chicken, you know, I used to love it. And I saw your comment, remember, it's sad. And it's like, I was talking, I'll say it this morning, you know, Mina Sangeeta, she's Nepalese. She comes on the channel. She was scolding me because I wouldn't watch her lives. Well, Sangeeta is Sangeeta, and I like her as a person, but she doesn't discuss anything. And then she goes to sleep, turns off the light, and leaves the video running. And this is what you see. That's it. And you can hear her breathing. I'm like, are you serious? I told her, I said, why do you leave your video on all night? Because I want people to watch my channel. I said, there's nothing to see. And she laughed. I said, it's the dark. You can't see you. And I ask people this, and I'll ask the same thing of pastors. What is your reason for doing what you do? If you're called to be in the ministry, you should not be worried about the money. If God has called you in the ministry, you leave the finances to Him. It's okay for the pastor to give a discussion on the biblical approach to giving, but harping and harping and harping and carping, no. No. Oh, I wish you would, chicken. That'd be cool. Hey, Summer, I don't know. I heard a rumor about that. Yeah, Fahanda. Well, we don't have ice. We don't have salt trucks and sanders, snow plows. Most people down here, I don't have a snow shovel anymore. I've got a square-headed concrete shovel. I mean, I could use it in a pinch. Shoot, that's when I shoveled snow in Mammoth for years. The snow was too heavy to use a scooper. You could not lift the snow. We called it Sierra cement. It's just awfully heavy. Man, this stuff came out just right. Hi, Tina. How are you? Absolutely, Joel. Absolutely. Now, I'm not saying pastors are human. I'm sure they've had to get on their knees with their wife and say, Lord, I don't know how we're going to make it. That's why it's called ministry. Ministries. These big name preachers making millions of dollars, I've got a problem with that. I've got a problem with that. Does anybody else? I'm not just talking about the crazy ones like Joel or Copeland or Benny Hinn or all those. I'm talking about David Jeremiah worth $50 million, $50 or $80 million. John MacArthur was a millionaire before he passed. They get rich and people say, well, they write books. How do they got time to write a book when they're the pastor of a large congregation? Man, I know pastors that have run small churches and they are busy. If they got 100 parishioners, they're visiting shut-ins, they're visiting people in the hospital, they're doing marital counseling, they're doing premarital counseling. It's just crazy. Oh, Chicken and Pug, I tell you what, I don't even listen to them. All that is a three-ring circus. Oh yeah, they call those sermonettes, Joel. Sermonettes. But this is just me. And they really do it down here. A lot of Baptist churches believe in giving the invitation. Giving the gospel at the end of the service. Everybody keep your eyes closed. Nobody looking around. Just stick your hand in the air. If you don't believe if you die, you're going to go to heaven. And that drags on and on. I'm like, man, can we end it? I look at our church and it's tiny. The property's big. The building is large. But we're not even at half capacity. And you can kind of tell who's in there as the regulars. And I don't like long-winded on and on and on and on. And I'm a fine one to talk. Hey, Christ follower. I'm guilty. I am guilty. There's some people I can listen to for a while. It's sad. If you have a girlfriend, you'll listen to her for hours on end. If it's a female you work with that you can't stand, it's like, wah, wah, you know, and it's my attention span. I want to hear a preacher that engages me, that grabs me. I want to hear a speaker that grabs me, not some motivational speaker. But somebody who says something profound, like when I'm working on the house and I got somebody blathering on, I'm like, whoa, what did he just say? And I'll stop what I'm doing. I'm like, ooh, I like this. This guy's right on. But a lot of pastors, man, you sit in there and you're just like, why is this guy in the ministry? Years ago, I had a friend in Duluth, and oh my gosh, our regular pastor was out. So, a guy by the name of Eric, this is northern Minnesota, and he decided to preach. That was painful. When I sat in there, I thought, who thought it was a good idea to have this guy speak today? And after church, I said to my buddy Aaron, I said, Aaron, what'd you think of Eric's sermon? And he'd always call me Nels for my last name, Nelson. He shook his head. He said, rice cakes, Nels. Rice cakes. Mike, I can't even believe they put him up there to speak. That was as dry as it gets. I said, I know. I said, that was painful. He said, if I had to sit in here and listen to that again, I'm not going. I said, I wouldn't go either. Hi, Vox. Let me see what Fahana says. Yeah, Fahana, you got a point. You know who had an interesting story? Why am I forgetting his name? I think it started in 1959, 1960. A Pennsylvania country preacher by the name of David Wilkerson. He saw something that happened up in Central Park in New York City on the paper in his town, and it bothered him. Hey, thank you, Vox. I'm good. I hope you are all right. I know Christ, and that's what really causes problems. We're very sectarian. Yeah, the news without the faith, the word of the Lord without man's spin. David Wilkerson started, he felt moved to go to New York City and reach a gang. Very dangerous. And it's true. He reached a leader of the gang at that time called the Mau Maus. And help me, Christ follower. What was his name? What was his name? I remember it, and it's right here, and I forgot. Was it Nicky Cruz? He got saved. And God used that little country preacher to reach a hardcore in the inner city. The cross and the switchblade. That story had an effect on me. You need to be called by God. You don't just go up and try to get involved with gangs. I don't feel that I have an inroad into that at all. I don't. And never just appoint yourself to go give it a shot. That man was moved by the Holy Spirit. There's no doubt in my mind about that. No doubt in my mind. Nicky Cruz, I believe, started a ministry which is based in Colorado Springs. And the legacy of Wilkerson goes on. One person at a time. That's powerful. I read the book and I saw the movie. I would challenge anybody to get the book, The Cross and the Switchblade. It's a good read. It's a very good read. It's not dry at all. That God was doing something. Vox, thank you for that. That's why when I talk to you guys about the word, I do not put my spin on it. There's too many people to do. Man, there's people getting on the internet, just polluting the internet with false theology, false teaching. There ain't no rapture. Oh, that's just a bunch of garbage. And I don't even argue with those people. I block their channels. So, well, you know, if you want to go through the tribulation, be my guest. Sometimes I wish God would just let them go through it because they want to deny the truth so bad. So, all right. You want to be tough guy? You feel like you want to be close to God? All right, go through it. Have fun. I've never heard of John Paul Jackson. But another story I read, where'd I get the name from? I just created it because I love the ocean. My heart is with the ocean. Thank you, Vox. I appreciate that. And Caveman, welcome. Another story that had an impact on me was a lady who had a program called Johnny and Friends for years. You don't hear about her now. Johnny was a pretty active young lady back in the day. Out swimming in the lake with her friends, dove into the water and hit a rock or something. Paralyzed herself from here all the way down. Johnny Erickson told her story. She went into traction. They put her in this was different technology back then. They put her in the hospital and they would put her in this thing where they turn her upside down and do all kinds of, they were experimenting back then. Yes, Johnny Erickson taught. And her story's a must read. Women, I would encourage you to read it. she had a guy that had an interest in her. And he kept telling her, you just got to believe that you can be healed. You put that trip on her. She got angry at God. She said, wow, God, why aren't you healing me? And she just about abandoned the faith. And she had to learn Christianity is about not getting what you want. I struggle with that too. If that woman had not had that diving accident, we wouldn't know who she was. And that woman has been used by God more powerful from a wheelchair than I have with all of my energy on two legs and all of my know-how. Let that soak in. Sometimes God has to break us before he can use us. When we got everything going, we get a little proud. Johnny struggled. She never did get healed. But the healing that she brings in the name of Jesus for the soul, for people in wheelchairs and different levels of autism where they can understand Johnny and friends. She can paint with a toothbrush in between her teeth. She can sing. She had a children's ministry. She had a heck of an outreach. And this woman, an able-bodied man, married her. She can't have sex. She can't get up and perform sex. And a man loved her and married her. Folks, I couldn't do that. I couldn't marry somebody in a wheelchair. I don't have that kind of love in me. Yes, Scott. I used to hear a program with Chuck Swindoll, Insight for Living, Unshackled. When I was in Prescott, Arizona in the 80s, they had a radio station that came out of Vegas. It had a pretty powerful signal for us to hear it in Prescott. And it was called Searchlight, Shine Your Beam on Me. And they'd always say, we are airing from the city of sin in Las Vegas, Nevada. You know, people out here, people everywhere I go, oh, I get to go to Vegas. When they tell me that, I just kind of look at them like, you know, I went to Vegas as a kid. I remember when I was little, in the 70s. My dad had a love affair with Nevada that I, to this day, don't understand. And we come down the mountains and look on the desert floor, and there's Vegas. And they used to have the Dunes Hotel. The Strip was just this short. I kid you not. When I was a kid, I remember it. There was nothing to the city. Now it's like LA. I mean, it's blown up. Bumper to bumper traffic and all the casinos, all the buildings. It is out of control. I drove through Vegas in the 90s on my way back to Colorado, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I have no interest in slot machines, craps tables, keno, poker. I have no interest in any of that. People say, oh, the shows, the food. I had good food in Hong Kong, thank you. And I'm sorry. I've seen some good shows in my life. And what I really want to see more of is those moments where God shows up. That's the show. When I was in Hurricane Helene and I went out Friday night, that ended on the early morning of Friday. I spent all day cutting an oak tree and I went out in the backyard. All the power was out in the city. I looked up and I couldn't believe all the stars. Then I come back to this because that was a moment for me. We had no phone, no radio, no power. People said the news stations, the radio stations weren't transmitting. Nobody could get gas. I mean, it was crazy. My neighborhood just went pitch black. And I stood in the backyard and looked up. I'm like, look, hey, Tina, come here. You've got to see the sky. There's no light pollution. And I stood there looking up, and I just felt like the Verizon commercial. I felt like God was saying, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I said, yes. Sometimes God brings all that crap, that ugly stuff, to drive us back to the main thing. Yeah, Vegas doesn't do anything for me. Now, somebody said, Michael, I got a job for you on a South Pacific island, a nice little hut you can live in. Oh, baby, sign me up. Thank you, Scott. Helene had an impact on me. It wasn't the storm, just like Elijah when he went up on the mountain. There was a wind, but God wasn't in the wind. It was a fire. There was all his noise. Then he heard a still small voice and wrapped his mantle, cloak around him. At day's end, I'd worked to get the driveway open so I got Tina's car out, my truck out, and attempt to pick up the pieces of the storm and the aftermath. Wait for the insurance agent to do an inspection on the roof, and wait for this and the power to come on. And by that night, as you go out and see all those stars, do we look up? We're so busy right here. We're looking at all this. Do we ever stop and just do this? I think it's interesting flying across the Pacific, how many times to go to Asia. That perspective is awesome. When I left Arizona after visiting my folks in the 90s to go back to Minnesota where I lived, you leave sunny Arizona, you get up in the sky and it's sunny. Then when you get over the state of Minnesota, you look down, it's gray. It's cloudy. You're looking down, but you're in the sun. And as you start to descend to Minneapolis Airport, and you go through thick clouds, and as soon as you come down through those clouds, it's just gloomy. Ice crystals everywhere. I have to tell myself, even when the storm's going on, certain level above it, it's sunny and bright. Chicken, that is awesome. I bet you got some nice sky up there. Hello, Kevin. How are you? Well, thank you for being honest, countless thoughts. Thank you. I could laugh and say I don't agree with myself all the time. I say this again, TGJ and everybody else, the best place ever. I think it was August 1988. I was in a church and I went with a young adult group in my 20s down to a 3-day trip into an arm of the Grand Canyon to Havasu Falls. Very beautiful place. 10-mile hike in, and when you start, you're at the top of the rim and the view is incredible. And you walk down through desert and down, descend to the canyon. There's trees down there. I, to this day, would live in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Now, I wouldn't want to be right where the rivers are running, but I love the canyon. It is beautiful. And what shocked me is my first night, my buddy Rex and I shared a tent, and we camped above Mooney Falls. There's a series of falls. There was Havasu Falls, Mooney, and I forgot the name of the other one. But Mooney was dramatic. I think it was 200 feet. And we slept on the creek or whatever that runs through there. We were above it, but back a couple hundred feet. And you could hear from where we were, there's, the roar. But I remember when darkness fell, none of us could get to sleep right away, so we were walking around. I said, Rex, look up there. Because there's no light pollution in the canyon. It's like a piece of black construction paper that somebody, for the next umpteen years, took a compass, one of those compass needles, and went. That's what it looks like. And as you're standing there, you just say, what they call shooting stars, meteorites. It blew my mind. I've never seen anything like that. Never seen anything like that. Seeing all the stars, you could see everything. Now you can't even in parts of the country. Oh, yeah, because there's too much light pollution, TTJ. I don't make this stuff up. God has given me some touchstones, and I do complain a lot. I'm not going to lie. And I stop back and go, you know what, Michael, you've got to see sights that most people could only dream about. You got to live in Hong Kong, even though your reason for going was a complete joke and a fail. You got to be in the Philippines. You got to be in Japan. You got to be at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. You stood in front of the redwoods, the sequoias. You stood in front of Old Faithful. You've climbed Mount Lassen. You got to see cool stuff. Green shooting stars, now that would be interesting. And thank you, you guys. I want people to get something from the channel. And when I say this channel is different, it is. This channel is not supported by contributions. Michael goes to work for a living. But I do this because I love it. And just like I was talking about Mina earlier, I said, why do you get on YouTube? Do you want the likes? Or are you doing it because it's your heart? A lot of people get on the internet because they think it's quick express route to money. And let's be honest, some make money without even trying. It's almost criminal. Some people get on here with absolute caca content. There's several channels out there that are just loony. 700,000 subs on Ice Cream Guy. I am not blasting him. People think I hate him. I don't have a reason to hate Toilet Seat Man. 700,000 subs. He's almost at 1 million subscriptions. It just blows my mind. Yeah, countless. Sometimes, like Benny Johnson. I would watch Benny Johnson. I don't watch him anymore. Paul Joseph Watson, I'll watch him just rarely. Mark Dice, I gave up on him because he started saying some things that I disagree with. And I'm like, there's certain lines in the sand that I draw. Certain things that people, when they take a stance against something that I'm for, now I'll agree to disagree, but with certain things, no, that's out. I unsubbed, I'm out. But what bothers me about Benny Johnson and others is they've made a cult shrine out of themselves. And even though I voted for Trump, Benny Johnson is Trump's right-hand man. And, you know, everything becomes a cult following, and I hate that. And I tell people on my channel all the time, don't make a shrine out of me. I sin, I make mistakes. Whatever gift I have is from God. It's not because I'm so great. Even at work today, I made several mistakes. I caught it. And I told he goes, Mike, why do you get stressed? I said, I hate making mistakes. He goes, you better get used to it. He said, I'm your supervisor and I make mistakes. He said, I never get mad at you because he said, you do so much good. I said, I know, but I like to be seamless. Mar Fugel, the Jerry Springer explosion. I remember when that came out. I was appalled. Two big heavy women in there cussing and yelling at each other. And I'm sorry. Forgive me, ladies. Please don't think I'm being mean, but I thought, wow, trailer trash airing their fights on national TV. No thanks. Who wants to watch that? Well, I moved to Augusta, and just about everybody I worked with when I was at transportation loves Jerry Springer. Yeah, okay, yeah. I watched him the other night because I wanted to see what he was doing. He wasn't wearing a toilet seat, and I have to admit it was funny. Stupid, but it was, he's sitting there, blah, 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 I can't stop, I can't stop, I can't stop, I can't stop, blah, 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 you can't stop me, blah, blah, blah. Ocean Heart, your band. E-Rock, I messaged E-Rock, I said, come here and listen to this guy. He's doing rap music. He was singing rap style. You can't make me stop. I wear a toilet seat all day long. I mean, it was crazy. And I said, this is so stupid, but it was kind of funny. But I wouldn't pay it. The people are donating money as I'm watching. And he'd say to the people donating, your band, your band. Oh my gosh. Mr. Balmer, thank you, and it's good to see you. If I may, Mr. Balmer, he drives school buses up in Long Island, and he's a school bus trainer, and he takes care of his parents on Long Island, and a house caught fire. So they're living in temporary quarters on the property while the house is being remodeled by insurance. But he's been going through a time. So please give a hearty welcome to James Balmer. I met him on the school bus page a couple years ago on Facebook. And he is a brother and he is a conservative. Do I get high? No, I don't believe in doing drugs. Hello, Deborah. How are you? Thank you, Breaking the Matrix. Sometimes I doubt myself. Trust me. There are times I go to bed at night. Not every night. I mean, I go to bed every night. But there are times I curl up under the blankets and I just curl into a fetal position and say, I feel so tiny in this world. So small. Like a gnat on an elephant's behind. Breaking. Countless, I can't stand what Biden and them were doing. I really have a problem with what they're doing. And I don't agree with everything on Donald Trump, but I don't think illegals should be allowed to just walk into this country. It's an insult to people who became citizens. I lived in Hong Kong and I really wanted to get a job there. And you have to be sponsored. Kid Toko, can you keep with the conversation? Nobody wants to talk about pot or getting high. You're saying I hate you. I don't even know who you are. But if you're going to have that discussion, I'll just ban you from the room. You got to read the room and look at what we're talking about. Nobody's talking about getting high. Relationships are so tough. I haven't dated in 8 years. The last woman I dated was a black woman in Denver, 2018. Because Kid Toko, I haven't seen you in ages, and I haven't. You have to. You know how many people have come and gone on the stream? Don't take it personal. I haven't changed. You know how many people come into chat, and you have not been here for some time. That's normal. And I'm trying on this channel. I mean, I do speak out about politics. I can't help it. But I'm also trying to get focused. How can we reach both sides with Jesus? You know, I've been scolding people about this Trump cult. You know, I'm seeing a lot of people, they make Trump out to be like he's God. And it's like, no, he's not. And we never should do that to any leader ever. God is God. God is on the throne. And I heard today, Trump's backing off. He's trying to work with Greenland and Denmark so he can do his shield without affecting Denmark's sovereignty. I'm like, well, good. I'm glad to hear that, because if he was going to take Greenland from Denmark, I was going to say, I'm not going to get behind that. Denmark's done nothing to us. You cannot just steal somebody's land like that. It's 2026. But I do know that the media that is very anti-conservative, they're not reporting the news. They twist the heck out of things. And the media is not reporting facts anymore. It's all spin, and I'm tired of that. I tell people, turn the TV off. Turn it off. Hey, Beth, how are you? I haven't listened to Kanye. I think I heard one of his songs. I'm not really into him, Toko. And I remember the name now. It took me a minute because I remember the name Toko. It's been a while since you've been in here. Cable news is digital. Yeah, you know what? Everybody's an armchair expert, countless. I want to hear something that is true. I'd rather watch a documentary on the Titanic or a container ship. I like to see videos of the whole thing in action. I like the videos where you get to ride on the container ship and hear about the crew taking a voyage, what they do. I like it when they discover a shipwreck. I like hearing about something cool like Pompeii, archaeological digs and what they've uncovered. I like listening to classical music, and I'm guilty. I like looking at all the pretty women in the classical music concert playing their instruments. I love classical. I tell you what, when I get in the mood for that, the power in classical is amazing to me. Yes. And you know, I can't do anything about the crap that goes on in this world. I'm not big enough. And I'm tired of it. I'm going to say it again. The House and the Senate gets to vote themselves a raise. That ain't right. They need to have term limits. And including this organization, nobody has done anything to make that happen. I would never be president. They'd never elect me. They'd drag out all my skeletons. The media is so harsh and so nasty, they'd bury me. I don't want to be on the evening news, ever. I have no interest in it. I've heard of him, but I haven't heard his stuff, Kevin. Or Beth, I'm sorry. Not the Lion King, the Lion King, Tina. Oh, Countless. Now that would be cool. You know what's funny? I don't look like a classical music guy. I'm Michael being Michael. I'm not polished. But I love classical, and I love watching people play the instruments. When I was friends with this guy in Duluth years ago, we went to the Duluth Symphony Orchestra down at the Duluth Entertainment Convention Center on a winter's night. Man, it was so neat because I'm used to hearing it. I used to listen to NPR until NPR got really up my nerves with all their liberal twisting. I used to listen to Prairie Home Companion by Garrison Keillor, and then he started putting liberal junk in there, and I'm like, Garrison, you had a good thing going. Why did you bring politics into your show? Tales of Lake Wobegon, you know, and I'm so tired of all that. It's like the comic strips. Gary Trudeau and Doonesbury. It's like the comics were something kids look forward to and adults, and then they become politicized. Hey, Mina, what are you doing? You're up. You're up already. Mina's from Nepal, everybody. She lives in the beautiful city of Kathmandu. She does videos sometimes walking down the street, and you see people selling the brass cooking vessels and very fascinating stuff. Seeing Sangeeta's videos is like seeing something out of National Geographic. Like saving for something, $10,000. Are you serious, Mr. E-Rock? Oh, they're really talking about people want them to raise the bow. What are you going to do with it? And I'm going to tell you, you're not going to be able to get it up. People say it'll collapse. I don't know if it will or not. But if you try to pull up on that, that thing's so deep in the Atlantic muck. You cannot, what I think they need to do is get the anchors. They need to get the propellers. They need to do the electrolysis and control the rust on them. And they need to put those on display. Because the ship is rotting. And once you pull that, if you pull that ship up at all, it's going to rot fast. You'd have to keep it in water. You'd have to put it in fresh water, do the electrolysis. The cost would be outrageous. Sangeeta, did you sleep good? I had this little tiny piece of coal. They had a limited time offer with my name and a certificate. I say it was Titanic authentic coal spilled on the ocean floor. I sold all that. I sold it to a guy who collected ocean liner stuff. I had a 1912 Collier's magazine on the disaster. It was, I was going through different stages of my life, and stuff was getting old, and I didn't want it to get weathered and the pages coming apart. I sold stuff. I've moved so many times. And when you have stuff like that, you have to have humidity control. You got to protect it. And it's too much. I want one thing off the Titanic, but it'd be too dangerous to own it. And I would want the ship's bell. That would really blow me away to ring that thing. It would almost be like hallowed ground. And that's good, Mina. Well, I have a good idea of the night the Titanic went down because I swam in Lake Superior in the summer and it's that dang cold. That water is freezing. And if you stay in the first 3-foot level of it in July, towards the shore, you're good. But if your legs go beyond that, it's ice. And I remember when I was swimming in there, I thought, you got what? A maximum 40 minutes in the water. It just sucks the heat right out of you. The bell of the Titanic it's either in a traveling museum or it's put away somewhere. They actually have a real Titanic lifeboat in the Smithsonian. And that was not pulled from the wreck. That was what the survivors, were picked up in the Carpathia. Carpathia was torpedoed. I read a story, and I came upon it by accident in Duluth Library. And that story moved me. I wish I had the book. Duluth had some interesting literature that I hadn't seen. Sangeeta, I don't have anybody with me. This is a hard town to make close friends in. This is a very different culture for me. I thank God that he's made me strong, because if I wasn't strong, this place would do me in. God is obviously toughening me up for something, because this is not my cup of tea down here. But I can't remember the name of the book, but it was written by Commodore James Bissett. And he was talking about his life, and what is it, an autobiography or a biography? I can't remember. If the author writes it, is it auto or is it a biography? Somebody correct me on that. But he started working on wooden sailing ships as a youth. He worked on a passage, went to India. The captain said, "I'll hire you. If you like me, you can stay on. If you don't, I'll pay you. You can go to another ship." And guys would like the captain and stay. If they wouldn't, they'd go change ships, like the captain and the crew. He worked his way up to the steel steamships. I've seen that on YouTube, Mr. Ewok, but it would be fun to see it. Beth, I understand that. Both, TTJ. It's all about yourself, autobiography. Thank you, Countless. I appreciate that. If an author writes you, it's a bio. Okay, thank you. The other one I always wonder is, what is the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath? It's a real fine line, I know. But James Bissett, I'm reading this book. I'm fascinated with his world. He had no college. I believe he's British. Yeah, he's British. And I get to a chapter in the book. And he's detailing, he's now a second officer or something. He's moved up from swabbing decks and tying knots to now he's on the bridge. And I'm reading and he says it's April 15th and the guy came out of the radio room and gave a message to somebody on the bridge that the Titanic was sinking. And that created quite a stir. The captain was woke, and the captain said, "Are you sure?" "Yes. Read it." And the captain got up, got dressed, and he said, "All right, men, we're the closest ship. Don't alert the passengers. Be quiet, be quick. We don't know what we're in for." The Carpathia was a small ship, and they're thinking, Titanic's got, what, 2,200 people on board? They pulled out extra linens. They moved the tables in the dining room, the first class dining room. They moved stuff to get ready. And they put on all the steam they could, and they were literally dodging icebergs. They were the only ship. And then as the sun came up, they had to go 60 miles. But to ship like that, it's going to take 3-4 hours. 5 hours. Titanic could only go 21 miles an hour top speed. The Carpathia was slightly less than that. And they said the crew, it really hit them when they see the lifeboat. They're like, "Oh my gosh, she's gone." The captain of the Carpathia was incredible. Commodore James Bissett was on the bridge as an officer. And his career, the Carpathia was owned by the Cunard Line. That man worked his way up to be the Commodore, the captain of the Queen Mary, which is now docked in Long Beach. And I was blown away. I was so caught in this book. I'm like, this guy had no college, had no cell phones, no computers, nothing. And he was in command of the largest ship of its day, over 1,000 feet long, a skyscraper on its side, huge 4 giant brass propellers, and a city at sea. I've walked on the deck of the Queen Mary. I feel like I was born at the wrong time. I love walking on that ship. I can't stand all the tourists, all the gift shops, but I love the heart of the ship. The rivets, the thick steel plating down in the engine room. They gutted half of it. But you go down where the staterooms are, the decks sloped, and the old Bakelite handrails and the rich paneling and the first class ballroom with the pillars and the smokestacks. I remember standing by the smoke. I was like, look at the size of them things. Everything was on a grand scale. I remember standing on the bridge. I said, oh, now this would be my office. I love the old ships. These cruise ships hold no fascination for me. None. Hey, Mr. Russell. Sangeeta. You're so cute. I love ocean liners. I don't like cruise ships. They're Walmarts at sea, roller coasters. There's something wrong with me, viewers. I would be content sitting in this. I don't smoke, but the smoking room on the Titanic was ornate. They didn't smoke the cigarettes. The men were their cigars. Hey, gentlemen, shall we have a round of cards and a cigar? But of course. What was that? I don't know, Mr. Guggenheim. The ship might have lost a propeller. Did you hear that grinding noise? I did. My drink's still wiggling. And they're still playing their cards. Having their gentleman talk, and somebody comes in and said they've hit an iceberg. Oh, okay. Then they go on playing cards. These guys had no idea how serious it was. When you're on something that big, you think, okay. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, nobody was taking it so lightly. And the women were brought on the Carpathia and people kept fussing about them. One woman said, please go away. We've seen our husbands drown. And believe it or not, in 1912, the rich people on the ship were not like they are today. Mr. and Mrs. Isidore Strauss were on board the Titanic. They were the owners of the famous Macy's department store in New York, which hosts the Macy's parade. They chose to go down. The Guggenheims. The rich people chose to be gentlemen and women. And when the wife said, somebody said, you get a life, I'm not going without my husband. Folks, it ain't like that today. Now, there was a problem with the Titanic. That's an ugly, ugly eyesore. The crew did not let the third class out. They had gates that separated them deep down in the bottom of the ship. And it was only a matter of time when the ship was like this, they knew there was a problem. And they streamed up and busted down the gates. And, you know, by the time they poured into the upper decks, the boats were gone. The death toll among third class is inexcusable. Inexcusable. But the wealthiest of the wealthiest, they chose to be men and women about the situation. I cannot imagine being on a ship with Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, these filthy rich fat cats of Google and social media. It'd be a free-for-all. An absolute free-for-all. It was sunk by something. They found it not too many years ago. Hello, backwoods. Oh. Wow, TGJ, I did not know that. I've got enough stuff in the house, backwoods. Nothing's going to prepare me if the power goes out. I got blankets. I got enough layers to put on. I'm glad I brought all my plumbing internal. I'm really glad I did that, because if it was in the attic. But it's not going to be deep down digits. It's going to be hovering between 33. Sunday it's going to get down to, Sunday night, Monday morning it'll be 25, and then it's going to rain again. So I'm assuming the temperature will go up Monday. But Governor Brian Kemp declared a state of emergency beginning Saturday. Tomorrow's supposed to be rain. I don't want this stuff to come. I mean, in the South, we're not prepared for this. I don't have a wood stove in here. That's right, can you remember? See, that's a problem, E-Rock. People panic. And they are making drama about this. I don't remember what year it was, but the natives here tell me that Augusta had an ice storm. The power was out for 2 weeks in places in Augusta. A lot of trees came down. Now, the good news and the bad news is Helene wiped out a lot of trees. So I'm hoping that will limit damage to power lines. But if the ice gets real bad, it can still pull the lines. So I don't know what we're in for. My concern is the pine trees across the street. They're over 100 feet tall. They could hit my house. what I think would happen with that is those big boughs coming off with all the pine needles, they'll start breaking before the whole tree comes down. So I got an oak on the side grown up in the fence. Limbs could come off of that. But oak being a hardwood, it's going to take it better. You'd have to have some pretty thick ice to knock the oaks down. Now the pine needles, they grab all that ice and that just dead weight. But I'll probably, if it gets real bad, I might have to get my handsaw and put on my gloves and handsaw pine boughs so the lady can get out of her driveway. But, I don't know what we're in for. And I don't like that. I don't want to sit in the cold and the dark. And I'm alone. I will handle it. Nobody's going to be looting and acting up. Everybody's going to be cold. There's nowhere to go. So he said, why don't you get a motel? I'm not leaving my house. Heck no. That's a lot of paperwork. Hey, Penny. That's not a bad idea, Penny. That's a really good idea. Oh, gosh. The COVID with the toilet paper was a joke. I went to Walmart week after week. There wasn't any on the shelves. I had enough. One of my friends in Boston said, look, if you run into a problem, I'll send you a pack because I got plenty in my house. I said, it isn't that bad yet. You're going to laugh at me. You're going to laugh. I thought, you know what? A warm soapy washcloth and hot water will clean your butt better than toilet paper with Klingon. So, not if worse comes worse. But what the problem was is people were using towels and wipes. And the plumbing company said, hey, stop doing that. You're plugging up the pipes. Don't put toilet wipes or wet wipes and paper towels down the toilet. They're not made, like the toilet paper, it gets wet, it dissolves. Yeah, evergreens are soft. TTJ, where are you again? I think it was 2014 in Augusta. I didn't know it hit you guys too. Milk, bread, and pop. I don't even eat any of that. I got cans of beans. Cans of carrots, got olives, cans of tuna, peas and carrots. Oh yeah, I got enough to keep me occupied. And I just found out my rice packets, even though I use them in the microwave, they got directions for the skillet. So these will work. And my stove is gas, so that's a good thing. I've got plenty of cigarette lighters that I found on the school bus. I got a drawer full of cigarette lighters. So you parents out there know how many of your kids are smoking. I found buttloads of cigarette lighters and vape pens when I was repairing the seats. No, I didn't keep the vape pens. They would cut a hole in the seat and they'd hide their stuff in there. Oh, you're in Kentucky too. Chicken and eggs says that, or chickens and a pug said, did you say 17 inches? Chicken, are you still in the house? Put hand sanitizer on toilet paper. Yeah, I also got a clicker. Did I put it in here? Yeah. Does it still work? Let's see. Yep, it still works. Knobs. Got my flashlights in the closet. Countless. I lived in Preston a long time ago. I live in Georgia. where this ice storm is going to be zeroing in on us and the Carolinas. I haven't heard anything about if it's going to touch Florida. It looks like they were saying it was going to be North Georgia, but Governor Kemp is declaring what he calls affected counties a state of emergency. I graduated Prescott High School in 1985, countless. I lived in California, Arizona, Minnesota, Colorado, Washington State, Ohio, Florida, Georgia, and Hong Kong. Yeah, you need to quit the cancer sticks, Mr. Russell. Well, we're not equipped for it. We're a subtropical climate. And if the power goes out, most of us don't have fireplaces. So that's a problem. You got a lot of seniors down here. You got a black community, and that, you got to worry about that stuff. And you get ice all over the roads. I'm not leaving my driveway. I don't think I'm going to go to, I don't want to buy a bunch of refrigerator stuff because if the power goes out, the fridge stuff would be okay. The freezer stuff would be iffy. Well, maybe not. It depends on how cold it gets in the house. Michigan, Illinois, New York. I did say Minnesota, right? I lived in Michigan, Illinois, New York, California, South Korea. Were you in the military? Wow, now there's a job. A retired corrections officer. Wow, Beth. Now that's something. Yeah, but it'll be raining. It's going to be between rain, ice, and what they call wintry mix. How'd you like South Korea? I dated a Korean woman in Denver. Her folks had migrated from North Korea way back in the day. She was from Buffalo. Well, the thing is, TGJ, if the power goes off, this house can be whatever the outside temp is eventually. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. And it may just be areas, this neighborhood, we had enough trees come down, so many trees come down that I don't think there's any more that can come down on the lines. The problem is you have glare ice roads, the bucket trucks are not going to be coming. That's cool that you went there. You're a woman and you worked with men in maximum security. Boy, that had to be dicey, Beth. Kevin, by the way, is using her husband's thing, and it's Beth. I can't imagine women dealing with men, maximum security prison, as a corrections officer. That's tough. I wouldn't work with men in prison. I'm not big and intimidating. I would not want to work with people that could get one up on me. We all got our addictions. I struggle with lust. I'm a man. And you go to church and you get beat up for that. I don't even talk to people about that at church. Sometimes I struggle. It's like, God, you gave us a sex drive. And how am I supposed to never, ever, ever think about it? Girl walks by with a tight top and no bra. I mean, you're going to notice that. It's not like, oh, I didn't see that. Yet, countless, the thing that shocks me about Korea, what I've observed. And when I was dating the Korean lady, I brought this up to her. I say, the Korean youth have lost their mind. The whole K-pop culture, dyeing their hair blonde, they don't have any tradition left. Whereas when I lived in China, there's still a lot of traditional Chinese. The Philippines I loved. Japan. But South Korea seems to have lost its mind culturally in the last so many years. Is there? Because, man, you look at the music, Korean music, it's teeny bopper stuff. It's just weird. It's so, the young have just gone radically away from that. The whole K-pop thing. I remember when I was in the Philippines in 2018 when I visited Gloria, and Blackpink was coming on the stage. And they sounded good at first, but, they've just become extremely westernized and, girls with attitude. I remember her niece, Ami, had this little microphone, the battery pack. She'd hold her phone up to it, and every morning she'd play Blackpink, and then she'd play that, that Jamaican song, Dura, Dura, Dura. I'm like, oh my gosh, Ami's up. And I started this little habit when I was in the family. I would always go, and Boo Boy was the nephew. Boo Boy, every morning he'd get up and do that to get my attention. Gloria would laugh. She'd go, listen, he's trying to do your sound. So I'd wait a minute. I go, and he'd go, so funny. I had an impact in the Philippines. I'm so proud. Blonde Barbies, yep. Yeah, I don't like that. I didn't like it when I saw Chinese women dyeing their hair blonde. I said, why? We want to be like the American. I said, why? I said, I come over here from China. I love it when they got the chopsticks in their hair. Oh my gosh. When I dated San Moy, she had that straight haircut. She had this little sprig ponytail that she called a ping chow. It was so cute. But I like a natural woman in their culture. That is so awesome. I don't like manufactured, fell out of a makeup bag and looking like everybody else. I like the uniqueness. I like exotic people to look exotic. Now, how did you do that? How do I change my keyboard to write in Chinese? Or that's Korean, actually, but how did you do that? When I was in Hong Kong, they sold laptops where the characters were all in Chinese. And you could switch it, English to Chinese. I was like, wow. Got you. Well, see, I wouldn't type that way because, of course, I couldn't do that if I want to troll somebody's channel. Nobody know what I was saying. I could write dum dum in Japanese and nobody know. Of course, YouTube would know, and then I get banned. That's incredible. I learned very few words in Canton. Cantonese is a very tonal language. Hey, Mr. Russell, thanks for coming in. Hey, can you take this storm and put it in Montana? You're not getting the snow. Why is it all coming to the south? James, why is that? Why? Hello, Danny. How are you? I'm sorry, I'm reading chat. And I didn't even see your little hello or hi. You can have it. Montana just needs to suck their gut in and pull it back. Everybody in Montana breathe in hard at the same time. Maybe it'll pull the storm away from us. Did you see, was it Kamchatka, Russia? Did you see that? Them low-rise apartments. The snow was drifted 4 stories high. Did you see that? And somebody in the comments said so much for global warming. And here comes the person who believes in global warming. Oh, it's a fact. I said, I live in Georgia. We got an ice storm coming. We had snow last year. I said, dude, I'm sorry. The world is not going to end by global warming. My book tells me how it's going to end. The book that I call my book, that I read, the Bible, God spells out in Revelation how it's going to end. It's not going by global warming. Hey, Beth, you have a good one. And thanks for coming in. Always good to see all of you guys and new faces too. It's weird because this has become a community. It really has, and that's good. I said years ago, I want to get offline. I'm glad I have online. People face to face don't interact the way they used to. Man, I grew up as a kid and we had bikes and big wheels and no cell phones, and the kids in the neighborhood ran all over and played together. You don't see that. So I'm glad I have this community. I know Helene shocked us because most of us, and I'm not born and raised here, I'm like, hurricanes don't hit Augusta. We're 130 miles from Savannah and the Atlantic. The spinoff, the outer bands will get the rain and some of the wind, but oh no, the eye wall went right over the house. I know, because I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning Friday because they called school the day before and said no work. And I'm laughing. I woke up at 2, I was going to write on Facebook, ha, they called it again and there's nothing happening. I had no idea that the eye was right over Augusta. Within 30 minutes of writing that, it was weird. Actually, no. I woke up, 2 a.m., looked out the window, nothing. No wind, nothing. There wasn't even rain. It had rain, it was wet. It had rained all Thursday, like 12 inches. That's why the trees went down. The ground got so saturated. And the 106-mile-an-hour winds at the house here. And what kills me, I'm sitting there about to type something like, they called another day off and I get a free day off. Yeah. And the lights flickered on, off, on, off, on. I said, what is going on? The lights came back on. I said, I better get off Facebook. Something's happening. When it rebooted, I signed out. I went to the window. I don't see lightning. I don't see the wind. I'm like, why is the power flickering? And literally within minutes, I'm like, okay, now we got something going on. But countless, I don't believe it's due to global warming. I believe there's weather trends. We've only been studying weather for at max 150 years. And you have to look at a couple things that I've asked some questions on my channel that no one's been able to answer that believes that. And one of them is I grew up in California. So I've been to Yosemite many times. And if you know anything about Yosemite, it's granite. Lots of granite. Like a whole mountain made of granite. and the valley floor of Yosemite, and you look at Half Dome El Capitan, it looks like a skill saw. Perfect blade just came right through there, and that's all glacier. The Great Lakes were supposedly glacier. I lived in Minnesota, went up to Eagle Mountain one summer with some friends, and I could see moraines. I said, those are drumlins, those are moraines. We were driving down a dirt road, I could see them in between. Dude, how did you know that? I said, I studied glaciers. He said, yeah, this is all glacier evidence in here. One question I have for all you global warming believers. Why did the Ice Age end long before there was any record of it by people? Before there was any industrialization? Before there was a smokestack, plastics, a car? That's a damn good question. The Ice Age ended way before. So we are not changing the environment. The environment is changing. Because when we sinned in the garden, we brought a curse. And when God sent the flood, before the flood, there was no rain. It said that water came up from the ground. God had his own misting sprinkler system globally. And when in Genesis it says that the great springs of the deep burst forth, people don't pay attention to that. Go look at a globe. Go look at a globe that shows the ocean, but without the ocean. What I call a topographical map of the seas. And you notice something very interesting, like seams of a baseball out there in the middle of each ocean. Ridges, the mid-Atlantic ridge, the mid-Pacific ridge. What is that? The great springs of the deep. The underground water table exploded. Hydraulic pressure shooting up, as well as rain coming down, flooded the landmass. And now, yeah, these fissures opened up with the water shooting out. Now they're being lubricated by mass amounts of water. You have volcanic activity, you got seismic activity, and as the plates slide away from each other, they hit on the other side. Up go the Himalayas, the Sierra Nevadas, the Appalachians, the Chugach Mountains, on and Wasatch, and whatever. And people don't believe that. They'll believe in so-called faith-based science and believes in millions and billions of years that we evolve from some slime or Big Bang or a tadpole or some amoeba that washed up on a beach. It's ludicrous. And that's why when I talk on my channel, if evolution is true, then the Bible's bunk. But here's the thing. The Bible isn't bunk. God created the earth in 6 days. There was evening and there was morning, the first day. There was evening and there was morning, the second day. And he reiterates it all the way through. And people don't believe that. They'll believe we came from monkeys. They'll believe we're primates. They'll believe all this poppycock. And it is a dominant leftist theme. It is a political theme of the left that global warming is the dire need of today. That same party is encouraging rebellion, activism, riots, rude behavior, gay sex, tri-sex, pan-sex, and they're worried about the environment heating up. My life's in danger. You go to a blue city and the crime went up. Oh, let's defund the police. Let's not punish the criminal. If anybody is destroying the environment in this country, it comes from the left, not conservatives. Hello, but why? And I'm sorry to get on my soapbox, but I believe global warming is a leftist construct. There is a scientist in Australia who wrote a big editorial years ago. And he said, I'm tired of all this talk of global warming. And he talked about, he studied volcanoes, and he said, do you know how much stuff a volcanic eruption releases into the environment? He said it exceeds anything the Industrial Revolution could throw out. One volcanic eruption is massive. Krakatoa was such a big explosion in Indonesia, east of Java. And they said that that sound was heard 1,000 miles away. If you want to watch a documentary that is fascinating, watch the BBC YouTube Krakatoa. The Danish settlers, the Danish colonizers, watch that. That's a mind blower. The scientist who was there studying Krakatoa, his notes were so thorough that his study and his observations of Krakatoa became the Bible for people studying volcanoes. And that is a very sad story. That is a very dramatic volcanic eruption. They said it changed weather sharply for years. Increased snowfall, increased rains, droughts. It just shifted everything. The sun was blotted out in places. Yes, man is capable of a lot of destruction, but God has this world in his hand, and he will end it when he says it's time. Not us. Not somebody's exhaust pipe. I'm all right. Wow, a hurricane for a birthday gift. That had to be a heck of a party. And forgive me for getting on my tangent, people. I actually need to close and get ready for bed. Tomorrow's Friday. I would appreciate your prayers. I'm being selfish, but I don't want to lose the power, and I don't want the rest of us to lose power because that sucks. But the creation that God spells out in Genesis is something to get excited about. If this world hinges on the fickleness of man and all that, that's a hopeless way to view the world. And I cannot get behind, and I'm sorry to say this, and countless of you are still here, I'm not trying to offend you, but I cannot get behind. I understand your disdain for conservatism, but the Democrats have just lied, and they're lining their wallets, and they're rich, and they do not, if they really believe in global warming, why is their carbon footprint so big? All these Democrats have mansions. Oprah Winfrey has 8 mansions, votes Democrat. George Soros, all these clowns from the left, they're filthy rich. They take more HVAC than the average American citizen. It's sick. They don't model what they claim to believe. And that, you can't get around that. You can't get around that. Well, but why we can hope. I'd rather the media hype it up like always, and then they're wrong. Because the problem with that is, the next time they say something, we're going to go, yeah, right, and then something's going to happen. Well, we're gridlocked. We're gridlocked. Remember, we are gridlocked. I'm not saying the Republicans are Jesus Christ. They're not. They're people. And people have motives. I personally see a lot of Americans as just wanting to exploit people. You're only valuable to somebody for what they can get out of you. Well, I'm North Georgia. That's the problem. We're still in the northern edge of it all. We're still just far enough where we're north. I was in chat one day, I was on a live, and I said I'm in Northeast Georgia. Somebody said, you're not Northeast. I said, go look at a map. It's Northeast Georgia. We're not central. We're not west, and we're not south. And you're right, remember, they made it, the politicians line their wallets, vote themselves a raise, and then they tax us. The taxation of us is disgusting. I don't like politics. I talk about it. I do believe that the Democrats are worse than the worst of the worst. And I cannot get behind them at all. But for us as Christians, our hope is supposed to be Christ, not a party. Not a party. That's the problem. I wouldn't want to be with politicians. You would have the powers of hell coming at. Can you imagine if I got into office? I would not want to deal with that. I would not want to deal with that. Folks, thank you for listening. I'm going to call it a night. But you guys have a good evening. Hey, Ralph. Yes, Ralph. I believe in capitalism, but to hear the Democrats talk about socialism when they're living like greedy capitalists, part of me's going, well, what you talking about, Willis? If you believe in socialism, then model it. Get out of your mansions, share your wealth, and get down here with the rest of us. They don't believe in socialism. They don't believe in it at all. They're liars. They're liars. And that's just me saying that they are liars. Nancy Pelosi is not going to live in a house like this, in the hood. It's sick. They don't want any of us to be as rich as they are. Absolutely not. But anyways, we'll save that for another rant. Everybody have a good evening. God bless and be safe. Till next time.